Welcome to the BroncBuster channel. Tyler here, and very excited about this series of videos we're going to be bringing to you guys. You're not going to want to miss it. This video is going to be the first in a series of videos that will outline all the different modifications and packages that BroncBuster offers on the website. This one here is going to specifically talk about how to find what options your Bronco has and what capabilities you're starting with so that you have a good starting point of where to add modifications without wasting money on unnecessary things. All right, BroncBusters, welcome to Hidden Falls. We are coming out here today to give you a little bit of a rundown of your Bronco. I'm going to outline each of the items that we are going to cover in this video. First, we're going to start on the external of the vehicle, and we are going to cover the basics of four-wheel drive, what a differential is, your transfer case, lockers, suspension, sway bar, steering rack and tie rods, bumpers, trail sight. Then we're going to jump inside the vehicle and we will cover the internal items. We'll start with hero switches, trail turn assist, traction control, Bronco trail control, goat modes, all-wheel drive, and last but not least, advanced cameras. First off, what is your Bronco equipped with? That's always the big question. Where do I start? I encourage you, if you have it, check out your window sticker. Your window sticker is going to give you a lot of key information, what transmission, what engine you have, gear ratio, axles, all of that type of thing, what your build has. Now, let's say for a minute we don't have that. First thing I'm going to tell you is go to your door, open it up here, and we're going to look at some key information on here. If you don't know what gear ratio you have, you're going to go ahead and go to this website, and you're going to look right here on the door. In this case, we have a 4L. A 4L will be able to look over across right here and determine this one has 446 rear locking differential. So again, if you don't have this, not the end of the world. Now let's move on to some of the basics about four-wheel drive. This is some good information to start with and understand, because if you understand how the vehicle works, you're going to have a much better understanding of how to make that tool work for you out in real world situations. So four-wheel drive. What is four-wheel drive? Well, four-wheel drive means specifically that you're sending power to the drivetrain, both front and rear. Now, that does not mean that when you engage four-wheel drive that you are sending power to all four wheels all the time, because that you have something called a differential. As you can see in this diagram of a differential, the purpose of a differential is if you did not have a differential, if you just had power going to those wheels at any given time, and you go around a corner, as you corner, one wheel is going to travel faster than the other wheel. You'll wear out those tires really fast. You're going to cause, it to kind of squeak and chirp. The whole design of a differential is to be able to transfer power from the wheel of least resistance. Now you might say, well, okay, if I'm going to transfer that power to the wheel of least resistance and I'm out four-wheeling, what is that going to do to me if I want to get through something and all of a sudden the wheel that needs the power doesn't have it, and the one that's up in the air is spinning? That's why we're going to then talk about some other key parts. Transfer case. What is a transfer case? Well, basically it's a mechanical device that allows you to engage it into four-wheel drive. The transfer case is what helps to transfer that power. Those components is what we call lockers. What a locker does is just that. It takes that free spinning differential that differentiates the power going from one wheel to the next depending on the situation you are in. Now with that locker engaged, you are locking that in for an off-road situation, because we're not worried about cornering on asphalt or going on the highway. We are now in the dirt, in the rocks, and that allows us to lock those wheels so that if one wheel's in the air, then we're sending power to the wheel that is on the ground. That's where lockers come into play. Now let's talk suspension. What is suspension? Suspension is another critical aspect. The Bronco comes with several options. The stock Haas suspension, it comes with a Haas 3.0 suspension, and then it comes with the Bilsteins, which is what comes on a Sasquatch package. The reason why I want you to know what you have on your vehicle is it's important before you go modifying, you understand what you're buying parts for, because some of these parts aren't going to work across the board for giving you additional lift. Understanding your suspension is a key for future upgrades. For example, the Sasquatch package includes the yellow Bilstein with a small lift to accommodate bigger 35-inch tires. Okay, here's a look at the suspension in action. Now, notice how it helps the vehicle maintain stability and traction over rough terrain. All right, one of the other items your Bronco is equipped with, and pretty much every vehicle is equipped with, is a front and a rear sway bar. Not every Bronco came equipped with a rear sway bar. I believe it was in 2022 that they added the rear sway bar. What is a sway bar? Well, the sway bar helps minimize body roll on the highway. However, disconnecting it off-road can increase your wheel travel and improve traction and stability. And like I said, through this series of videos, we're going to show you the progression of as we build these different packages and add these different components, what that looks like. The steering rack and the tie rod are crucial components that affect your vehicle's handling and stability. Knowing what you have in your Bronco for steering capabilities is an important part moving forward, because depending on how your build progresses or where you want to end up may depend on what steering rack you want to have in there. Ford came out with the Ford Severe Duty Steering Rack, or in some cases we refer to it as the Haas 3.0, that came standard on some of the Wildtrak packages starting in 2023 moving forward, and then now they're actually adding that as a standard option in all Sasquatch equipped vehicles. So it's important to know, do you have it or not? There's so many different changes they made in these first few years of the vehicle. Best way to know, reach down, take a look at your tie rod, and you'll be able to see the Ford Performance, definitely bigger diameter. And with it being stamped Ford Performance, this tie rod here is the Severe Duty Steering tie rod. If you have that tie rod, then you are equipped with the Severe Duty Steering Rack from Ford Performance. Another important aspect of your Bronco is going to be what bumpers you have. What bumpers can determine the capabilities, from whether or not you have the tow hooks involved in for recovery, being able to attach a winch, or in a lot of cases, if you're going to do a body lift and you want to relocate bumpers, it's important to know what bumper you have so that you can do that. Our website is a great resource. We have all of these pictures and description outlining which bumper you might have, then determining what type of additions you might want to add at that point. The trail sight is nothing more than a gauge where it allows you to be able to visualize where your tire's headed. You want to get in the habit of looking out ahead, and really you want to line your tire up to go over the rock and not the vehicle, because if you put the vehicle over the center, you're probably going to do some damage to some other stuff. That trail sight just gives you kind of something to line up and to gauge your trail ahead of you. All right, now we're going to take a look on the inside for some of those visual cues to tell you what capabilities your Bronco has. First thing we're going to look at is your hero switches. Why do I call them hero switches? Well, because they help you to be a hero, right? Here's what I call the hero switches. The ones that I'm missing right here, if I had front lockers, I would have another switch for front locker. And then if I had the automatic sway bar disconnect, that would go right here. I'm missing a couple of switches, as you can see. I only have rear locker, I have trail turn assist, I have traction control, and I have hazards. All right, let's discuss some of the Bronco specific features. Trail turn assist. This feature helps reduce the turning radius with navigating tight areas or making sharp turns. It's a nice feature if you're trying to navigate through a really sharp turn without doing a whole bunch of backup. We have traction control. Traction control is actually a safety feature for on-road that helps prevent wheel spin and loss of traction when driving on slippery surfaces. Off-road, this is something that you'll notice as you put in your GOAT mode, you're going to be disengaging. It's going to automatically disengage that traction control, because off-road, we don't want that. So Bronco Trail Control is another great feature that they added on this vehicle. The trail control basically is like having cruise control on the trail. So think of it as an off-road cruise control. It lets you concentrate on obstacles without worrying about the throttle control. GOAT mode, what is that? Well, it stands for go over any terrain, and it allows you to switch on the fly. On the GOAT modes, you have a total of 8 potential GOAT modes. Normal, Eco, Sport, Slippery, Mud Ruts, Sand, and Rock Crawl. The only one that I am missing on this build would be the Baja. Let's talk all-wheel drive for a little bit. This is one of the biggest areas of confusion. I'll do another video that goes into when to use all-wheel drive, what its useful purposes is, more in depth on all the GOAT modes and showing better what those are used for. But for the purpose of this, just know if you have a 4A on your GOAT mode switch, you have all-wheel drive. That's most important if you're going to be doing upgrades such as an upgraded drive shaft, because they are two different part numbers depending on whether or not you have all-wheel drive. All right, let's talk about front axle disconnect while we're in that mode of 4A. You can see I do not have the 4A, which means I do not have the advanced 4x4, which also means that I have a front axle disconnect. Here's a chart you can reference right here to give you an indication, or you just look down. If it says 4A, you do not have the front axle disconnect. Otherwise you do. There are pros and cons to both. One pro is you're going to get better gas mileage, less parasitic drag. The con is you're more likely to break something when you're out four-wheel drive. Ford has also equipped these vehicles with advanced cameras to help take the guesswork out of your journey. But even without them, your Bronco is still extremely capable. So we've covered a lot of ground today, from understanding your Bronco's capabilities and features to diving into a little bit of the basics of four-wheel drive. Again, it's very important because there's so many different versions of this Bronco out there and so many different versions of four-wheel drive vehicles out there. It's important for you to understand what features you have so you know what tools you have to go work with out there. Knowing your vehicle is an important part of knowing what kind of modifications you should put on, so you're not just spending money in areas that you don't really need to. Now, a great resource out there that you guys want to check out, if you haven't done so already, check out Bronco Off-Roadeo. It's a great resource that's free with the purchase of your vehicle. If you bought this vehicle new, you can use your VIN and go in there, add it, and go to the Bronco Off-Roadeo. They have them all across the country. Check out the closest location to you. Bronco Off-Roadeo is a great resource for learning how to navigate the rugged terrain and how to use all of this technology. You're going to want to check out the next videos in this series as we go in, dive more into this Bronco and its capabilities before we start adding on all of these additional parts. We're going to show along the way not only what it looks like right now and what the capabilities are, but as we add different steps, we're going to come back out here, do the same trails to show a side-by-side comparison of what it can do on the trail with these modifications and what it can do bone stock. Hope you enjoyed watching this video and joining along for the ride. We've got a lot more for you. In the meantime, go ahead and check out this playlist right here, as we have a lot of other great, valuable information for you and your Bronco.